Hello, let's discuss about domain and range of a line. Many times when I ask this question, I get a wrong answer. What is the domain and range of a line? Well, 90% times students will say all real numbers for both domain and range without even looking at the line. Well, let's take some examples and try to understand the whole concept. Okay, generally when we talk about a line, then what are we saying? We are saying that, let's say this is our graph, then we say, well, the line could be something going like this, right? Or it could be something going like this, right? In either case, we find domain and range of the line is all real numbers, right? Makes sense because it goes from minus infinity to plus infinity. For all values of x, we have some value of y, right? So these are different lines. And for such lines, we do have domain and range of all real numbers. Correct. Now let's consider some very special cases of our line where this criteria may fail. Okay, so consider this line now. Let me draw a line which is horizontal. So if I have a horizontal line like this, let's say this point is 5, then the line equation will be y equals to 5. Now, what is the domain and range for this line, the horizontal line? Well, the domain is all real numbers. For each and every value of x, we do have a y value, correct? And therefore, the domain is all real numbers. But how about the range? Range is just 5, it's not all real numbers. Range is very much restricted to just 5, right? Now, let me consider one more line, and this time, not a horizontal line, but a vertical line. Think about this. Let's say this vertical line is going through point 3. In that case, what is the domain and range for this? Well, it's only valid for x equals to 3, and it is not even a function because it fails vertical line test. At x equals to 3, what are your y values? All real numbers, not just one. Any and every real number is at x equals to 3. So this line has a restricted domain, and here the domain is 3 and the range is all real numbers, correct? At times we may be talking about line segments. Okay, so let me introduce line segment here for once and say, well, we have a line segment here. Let's say line segment going from here to here, correct? Let's say this point is minus 4 and this point is 3. In that case, what is the domain and range of this line segment? Well, for the line segment, domain is from 0 to minus 4 without including, right? So we can write domain as minus 4 to 0 without including those points, and range is from 0 to 3, correct? Now let's take combination of line segments and lines and then see how the domain and range may change. Okay, so let me take one example here. And let me draw one for you. Let's say we have a line which is including these points, and then we have something from here, say going like this, correct? And something from here going like this downwards. Now for this, what is the domain and range? Okay, let's plot. We already have a graph. Let's mark some points here. Let's say this is minus 1, and let's say this is minus 2 for us, x value, and let's say this y value is 3 for us. Okay, and let me put this as minus 1. Now here you see it is a piecewise function. So there is a combination of 3 different pieces. Now here, what is the domain and range? So in such cases, you will not write a straight domain range, right? It is a combination. So how will you write this domain and range? Well, you can write domain as equals to, from here, is it a function first thing? No, it is not a function because at minus 2 we got 2 filled in, right? There is not a hole here, so it's filled in, so it's no more a function here. But in any case, let's write down the domain. So we see that it is from minus infinity. We have two values at minus 2, then we have one at minus 1. So the domain is from minus infinity to minus 1, and then we have a discontinuity, and then from 0 onwards, this is your origin 0, we have a domain which is 0 to infinity, including 0. So we will actually include this point because we do have a value here. For including, we have a bracket like this, closed bracket, correct? So this include 0 and it goes up to infinity. Infinity can never be included, right? How about range? Now range here is, you can say range is Ry belongs to real numbers where there's a discontinuity from minus 1, right? Where y is less than equal to minus 1, and what else? And y is between 0 and, let's say this value here is 2. So we say y is between 0 and 2, including both, and then y is equals to 3. So that becomes the range of this function, right? At times I find students, for them it becomes very difficult to write domain and range for such kinds of functions. One, they miss out on such points. Second, they haven't had examples where they are given piecewise function and then they are supposed to write domain and range. Okay, now let me take another example with you. This time I'll introduce you to some points. Okay, so let's say these are our points, right? Let's say we have a point here, a point here, we have a point here, and I'm making it symmetric, right, like this. Let's say this is at 0, this is at 1, this is at 2, and here also we have 1 here, 2 here, this is minus 1, and this is minus 2. Now, for this function, what is the domain and range? First, is it a function? For every value of x, well, we do have unique value of y, so it is a function. Now, in this case, what is domain and range? Now, when students write domain and range, they write between minus 2 and 2, where x belongs to real numbers. Well, that is a huge mistake. You could write from minus 2 to 2, but x doesn't belong to real numbers here. X belongs to integers. So you could write z or I for integers, right? But never write real numbers. That's a common mistake which I have seen here, right? Or you could just write coordinates, right? So for x, you could just write minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1 and 2, right? Similarly for y, you could write your coordinates. So y values are 0, 1 and 2, right? So you could write domain range in this form, correct? Don't ever write for such discontinuous or not connected with lines. Don't write them as real numbers. That is a huge mistake. Now, after all this, I'd like to give some questions for you to answer and think about it and write down domain and range for the given function. Here, I will take combination of all what we did so far. Okay, so first, let's start from here. Well, that's a big hole, and then we go here and this. Let's say this point coordinates. I'll just write coordinates for this point is minus 4 to minus 1. And coordinates, let's say this is our point at 2. And then we have a function from here going straight up to this point, right? Let's say this point is at, let's say this is 2.5, and this point is, because we're taking 4 here, let's take this as 2. Okay. And then we have a point somewhere here, and the coordinates for this point are minus 0.5 and minus 1. So what I'm saying is this is 3, sorry, the coordinates are 3 and minus 0.5. So coordinates for this point are 3 and 0.5. Okay, so this is my simple graph. I would like you to write domain and range for this function. Let me give you one more. as a practice problem. Here I will draw a vertical line. Okay, I know this is not a function, but write domain range for this. So this point for me is -4, this is +4, and this point is 3. And here we have as 2. Right? Domain and range for this function. Okay. Now, you have learned today from this exercise that when we talk about lines, it is not necessary that the domain and range for a line will be all real numbers. Okay, it could be restricted. The horizontal line has got just range of 5, domain may be all real numbers. Vertical line has a domain restricted to x equals to 1, correct? And for segments we have to see whether we have filled in or we have holes at the end, so that when we write our domain or range, should we include them or exclude them, right? So here these are holes, so we excluded them, and here they are filled in, and so we included them. So that's kind of important. And when there are just set of points on the coordinate system, then don't write set of real numbers. It should be set of natural numbers, whole numbers, real numbers, not real numbers, or integers to be on safe side. For integers you can use z or I. Okay. Now there could be piecewise functions where you have to see very carefully what is domain and range, okay, and then write it down. So these are 2 problems for you to do. Try to do them. If there is difficulty, let me know. I'll be glad to answer your questions. Thanks.